In this soulful episode of Ask the Oracle with Suzy Cherub, we delve deep into the journey of Lauren Newman, a funeral director, celebrant, end of life doula, and spiritual guide. Lauren shares her incredible path from childhood encounters with the mysteries of life and death to her near death experience that confirmed her belief in the continuation of the soul. She speaks openly from her heart about the transformative power of embracing life with love and creating meaningful end of life experiences. Through her work with Tree of Life Funerals, Lauren brings compassion, healing, and solace to those in our community. Her vision for an end of life haven inspires us to think deeply about how we live and die, and her wisdom reminds us that relationships and love are at the heart of a fulfilling experience. This conversation isn't just about death, it's about creating a beautiful life, bravely meeting the end and discovering the deep connections that bind us all. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Susie. That intro was great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited to dive deep into these questions. As a medium, you know that I'm that way shower. So I find this topic really deep, meaningful, and really helpful as well to the listeners. So, yay.
Yes, thank you. No, it's like it's proven to be my life work now. So bringing, as you say, that solace and comfort, and yes, that peace to end of life for people. So yeah, that's and it's been a tough journey at times, of course, as life can be. But I'm blessed with able. I've got the vision now to be able to see my way forward with it all, and I can see that it's really going to balance out down here, and there's going to, and I'm going to be able to provide, some beautiful services for people, um, services that are lacking,
Oh,
especially in a regional
absolutely.
area. In a
Yeah,
regional area, we really do lack a lot of services. Yeah.
exactly. I just love that personalized approach. It's so beautiful. Um, my first question for you, my love, is
Yes.
how does your near-death experience influence the compassionate services that you provide today?
Yes, well, when I was 26, I gave birth to my only child, and uh, I basically lost a lot of blood. So my near-death experience showed me that our soul, our spirit, our consciousness, whatever you choose to call it, continues on after the body stops working when it dies. Um, and after giving birth, I did lose a great deal of blood, and I was rushed off to surgery and to save my life. So, um, and there was my body on the table. The medical staff were desperately trying to save my life, and while working on it, the spirit of me, um, was watching from the other side of the room. Um, I realised what was going on, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm dying. This is so easy." And I watched it dispassionately. I remember it was a dispassionate type of thing.
Interesting.
And I just kept thinking, oh, I'm dying. This is so easy. There was no thought for the baby. It was just this beautiful, peaceful thing, a feeling, and this acceptance that, oh, this is it. But and there was no fear. It was purely that peaceful feeling, and yeah, it was astounding, and um, they obviously saved my life, and I recovered. I don't remember rejoining my body, but I do certainly remember the experience, of course, and the peace it left me with. Um, So now I know that we continue on after the body has died and that there really is nothing to be afraid of. Um, that's how I can support people
Yes.
near the end of their lives, as well as their families, and when I go to arrange a funeral as well. Um, I have an assurance, I think, about me that all is well and there's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
I don't offer my beliefs to people unless they ask. Um, it's more the calm assurance I think that I have, and the compassion that I have for people that comes through, and that provides the comfort in many ways, because they feel that, I believe, and I do understand their grief. I understand death, and I have no fear of that, and I think that comes through.
Exactly. Wow, your near-death experience, I just, was so blown away with that euphoric feeling of peace, you know?
Yes, totally.
The way you explained that, I just got tingles up my left side. That was so
Mm,
beautiful.
mm,
And I do think it gives you a deeper understanding, um, of, of that kind of eternal spirit. And that does kind of, that has to impact on the way you communicate with people. And I love that you don't push your, not, your views on people, but if they ask,
mm,
you can describe that.
mm.
Totally, totally love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and growing up too, I had experiences too on a spiritual nature, and I used to see spirits of people on occasion, and I had some out of body experiences as a child, and my mother just dismissed them as an active imagination, and yeah, yeah, told me I was silly and that I was being, it's your overactive imagination, um, but I knew I knew it wasn't, and yeah, and I also have a niece who basically, since she was a child, literally talks to dead people. And yeah, and she's come through with a lot of messages and things that actually has changed a lot of our lives in our family as well. Yeah, revealed hidden secrets because of her skills, and yeah, so it's a compounding thing in many ways, life, isn't it?
It
And
is, yeah.
yeah, and certainly all those experiences have brought me to where I am now of not just having a belief that our soul goes on, our spirit lives on afterwards, after our body dies, but having a knowing that it's a fact. Yeah.
I love that really deep calm inner knowing. It's so
Mm.
wonderful. It's just like I kind of know it to be true. So beautiful. I often find that mediumship runs in a lineage. And do you believe this is a high calling for you? Do you feel that way about it?
I do now. Yes, yes, because I can't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And I keep coming up with new ways of providing these services to people, like bringing this to people, and yeah, it's all sort of I started as a nurse, and yeah, it was that being a nurse, of course, I was drawn to that compassionate experience and of working in that compassionate space and the caring space. And I, through circumstances, etc., I ended up being, I was working in Sydney, and I got assaulted a number of times in accident and emergency as a young nurse. And the final time that happened, I actually had my jaw dislocated and I ended up unconscious on the floor.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness, Lauren.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then after I sort of got up from that, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't be. And I also was working in an area that I grew up. So I had a lot of even family members and school friends and things come through accident and emergency. and I had people die that I knew as a young person as well. Families of school friends clinging to me, saying, do something. Why can't you do something?
Mm.
And I'm just a nurse in the accident and emergency who just happens to know them, and or with friends with a number of these people, and to be so intimately involved in those experiences as well, and feeling helpless because I could only do so much, and
Exactly.
yeah. But after I stopped nursing, I ended up working for the federal government in Canberra, and
Mhm.
working for the Department of Health, because that was, aligned with my choices. But yeah, I was an unhappy public servant, I must admit, because it wasn't my thing, and I tried my best to do what I could, and yeah, it didn't sit. I was always drawn to something else, and then I thought, what else can I do? So I became a marriage celebrant, because it's sort of being involved in those, monumental times in people's lives that really makes a difference to me, and really called to me as well.
Yeah.
And so the marriage celebrant. So my one of my girlfriends, she was being married to this lovely man, and she said to me, "Could you do the wedding?" So they were my first wedding, and then a few years after they got married, he was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer, and as it turned out, he sadly was my very first funeral as a funeral celebrant. And from there, so bless you, Owen, in spirit. And from there, when I was the acting as the funeral celebrant there, um, the funeral director came up to me afterwards and said, "Would you like a job?" And I had recently taken recently taken a redundancy from the public service,
Yeah.
so it's all beautiful timing, isn't it?
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so I took I went and met with them, and became started working with them as their in-house celebrant, and trained to be a funeral director, and that's how I started in this field. So as we know, all of these things, we get drawn to these things, and
They're so synchronistic, aren't
it's
they?
all
Like
part
you
of
would
the
have been
timing.
guided.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, we talk about divine timing. It
yeah.
is actually real,
It is.
It
Oh,
is a
entirely,
journey,
entirely.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I love that
yeah,
so much. I'm
yeah.
really curious about your end of life haven project.
Yes.
What does that look like? And how do you think it will reshape the way people experience their final chapter?
Well, just sort of going back a little bit, I have been seeking the answers to life big questions all my life,
Yeah.
and I've read many books and done lots of training and classes and workshops, and so because I have that craving to know, um, podcasts like this, with various people,
Yes. Yeah.
um, but it's come evident to me that a huge part of the modern day new agey type of thinking
Yes.
actually has its foundations in Buddhist teaching.
Yes.
There's so many similarities between so many schools of thought, actually, when it comes to end of life and what happens afterwards. And Tibetan Buddhism talks about integrating acceptance into our everyday lives, that one day we will die. Um, Once we've accepted that fact, we can prepare for our lives by living a more beautiful life, which is striving to have the best possible relationships and showing love to others, and also coming to know yourself, like your true self,
Mm. Oh, I love that.
totally. And, like, you have to know yourself. Otherwise, what else is there? You're fooling yourself and everyone around you.
Yeah.
Um, and aiming to become a better version of that self every day, you know. Um, And I think that by striving to live such a life, we are more at peace. And look, nothing stops the ups and downs of life, of course. And we all experience the losses, and of course the joyful times, the great, wonderful, amazing times, and the the times of grief, but nothing protects us from that unless we're hermits who have decided to just disassociate ourselves from everyone. Um, but if we're more at peace with ourselves inside,
Mm,
and we have that acceptance that yeah, we are mortal, um, we can have a better, far more peaceful death transition, and it can be really beautiful. If you don't have sort of that type of environment around you, you hear stories of people who have, suffer sudden and violent deaths, or people who fight against it. It only causes more pain if you fight against it. It causes distress to the people around you, people who love you, just causes distress to yourself because you're full of fear and you're full of so um I want to be able to help people transition in a peaceful way. I like during my funeral work and end of life doula work, of course I get called by families and people who are essentially coming to the end of their lives. So they've been given a terminal diagnosis, or they even, if they want to find out about what it's all about. And I've worked with a couple of people who have chosen voluntary assisted dying, which is now legal.
oh,
Which
and
is
thank goodness. Yeah.
thank goodness, yes. And I've been working with a beautiful community, like supporting Dying with Dignity, which is the organisation that promotes dying with dignity and is part of the voluntary assisted dying network. And it's a beautiful thing, and um, to be able to have that choice and
Yes.
that authentic choice of whether you choose to continue on in suffering
Mm.
or go in peace. And I recently saw a lady who was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and she had chosen voluntary assisted dying for when it all became intolerable. And she followed a Buddhist lifestyle, and she was at peace with herself, her life, and her impending death. And I'm sure I know there were many times when she was fearful, as is natural. I can only imagine how difficult it must be um, to make that final choice. You putting yourself, putting myself in her shoes. You can't imagine how difficult that must be
Yes.
to take that final step.
So
Um,
challenging. Yeah.
oh yeah, um, people talk about bravery and things that it is brave in many ways because I think it's strength because you've got that strength of making that choice. Um, yeah, however, come the day that she chose to leave her body, she had her family and friends around her. She joined a Zoom meditation group with her meditation group earlier in the day and had experienced a beautiful meditation with her friends.
How wonderful.
Oh yeah, so she was ready, and she transitioned in a state of love, in a state of acceptance, and a state of peace. And it was marvelous for her and the people around her. And they were also proud. They were proud that she had left the world in such a way, and they were comforted by it all. And their grief was still so raw, of course, and but there was still the comfort there to know that she had chosen to do this and that she'd gone in peace and love.
So beautiful. I think the power of acceptance,
Mm,
a peaceful transition. I know often when I do mediumship and I connect with departed loved ones, I often get a message of like, thank you for a beautiful passing. Like it felt like, oh, I don't know, like, thank you for wrapping me up in a blanket. Thank you for playing, my favorite music. Thank you for making it as peaceful and as painless as possible. Um, I think, everything you just said there, I actually got goosebumps because I just think that, and I love the way you said to accepting it, like accepting that we are all going to transition. This
mm,
is, you know,
mm.
I think it's, an interesting way to live, isn't it? Where we all kind of walk around in denial that death, you know, yeah, I don't know. I think
Yes.
there's just something so special about, you know, living each day, not, not being morbid or
No,
miserable,
no,
but living each day
no.
with, it's quite the opposite, I think. It's
It
like
is, it is.
living each day with gratitude, compassion, and appreciation of how precious life and love is, Lauren, don't you
Absolutely.
think? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, that gratitude, of course, makes a huge difference, and, that transitioning, side of things is part of the end of life hub, that that haven that I'm hoping to develop. So uh, and I think it's very much in its infancy, this end of life haven, um, because down here in because you and I are both living on the south coast of New South Wales in the Eurobodalla Shire,
Yes.
and when I came down here from Canberra some years ago, Um, I wanted to work in the funeral space and the end of life doula space because I'd trained as an end of life doula whilst living in Canberra as well. And yeah, so I could see how important it was. And when I actually moved here, I was really surprised that there's only one incumbent funeral home here in Eurobodalla, and on a practical point of view, there's only one registered mortuary in the entire shire, which is within that single funeral home in Bateman's Bay.
I had no idea.
No, no, that's right. Nobody does because people don't want to talk about mortuaries. People don't want to talk about that sort of thing.
That's
Um,
right.
you know, um, but to me, with the Eurobodalla Shire, I think the population's currently about 65,000, maybe even more. Um, and to think that that's the only registered mortuary, and we have an aging population down here, and a lot of the support just isn't there. And when people are coming to the end of their lives, um, what have they got? A single choice. A single choice is not good enough.
No,
No,
no.
no. So,
I think,
uh,
we're all born sovereign beings with that gift of
yeah,
free will. And I
yeah,
think when you can practice your free choice, you're
mm,
always going to feel more empowered. You're always going to feel more at
exactly.
peace. You're always going to feel like you have some say over everything.
Yes,
But monopoly, it's an interesting, yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree. I think it would be to have that choice is just so powerful. Yeah,
indeed. Oh, look,
indeed.
and yeah, and also, from a hospital perspective as well, we have the old Bateman's Bay Hospital here and the Maruga Hospital within our shire. And within those hospitals, I think there's only about 2 beds each dedicated to palliative care. So, and it's a real hurry up and quick turnover type of environment in a hospital environment. So, who wants who wants to die like that? That's
No,
that's yeah, I don't want to be surrounded by machines that go bing and people running in and out, and a sense of being in a
in a
hospital
queue.
in a queue. Yeah, like
Yeah,
next, next,
next,
next.
next.
Um, you know, um, and we have at-home palliative care um, services here. We do. That they operate out of the Maruga Hospital as well. They've got offices there.
Okay,
But with palliative care all around Australia, there is a shortage of not only palliative care doctors, um, but palliative care nurses. And this is why I'm a big supporter of end of life doulas, and um, believe that more people training as end of life doulas is the way to go
yes,
to guide people through this end of life process. It's a non-medical role. Um, it's supportive of the medical role.
yes.
But
It's
you can.
complementary, isn't it?
That's
Like
correct.
it's
Yeah,
collaborative.
indeed.
Yeah,
And you can help people, you can reduce that fear. And so I started thinking, because one of my very good friends has also been recently diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and we talked about, um, you know, all these things about how she'd like to die, where she'd like to die, all, and it's she doesn't want to die at home because she doesn't want to leave that aura, that feeling of that in the house for her partner.
I understand.
She
Yeah.
doesn't she doesn't want to leave that behind, and a lot of people don't, you know. So if your home isn't suitable or you don't want to die there, your only other choice is to go to an interstate, or a long distance hospice, um, which is still sort of medical, but um, so we started talking about what's a good solution to this sort of thing, and then I started thinking, well, then I've got some end of life doula friends down here, and we also hold death conversation cafes. So,
They're brilliant, aren't they?
talking
Yeah.
to people about end of life, and
Yeah.
so
They can
really
ask
getting.
their questions
That's
and
right. Yeah,
mm,
yeah. And again, it's all about that education and
yes.
helping to reduce the fear that people feel.
Yeah.
And because knowledge is power, isn't it?
I
And if
was
you've
going to
got,
ask you about that actually.
yeah,
So I'm really curious how you guide people through their fears and hesitations about planning their end of life arrangements. So I can imagine that would
yeah.
be a sensitive kind of situation. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it is about talking to people about accepting the fact that one day they will die,
Yeah.
and how much more at peace they can be if they prepare for it as best they can and as soon as they can. Because once you do it, you've done it. Put it aside. You don't have to think about it anymore.
Yes.
um,
Be so
uh,
lovely for the family too.
yeah,
Don't you
well,
think it's
yeah,
supportive of the family?
absolutely.
Because
It
they're not
is.
left, they're
It
not
is.
left going, I wonder what she'd like, or oh,
Absolutely.
I want to do
Yeah.
it right for
Yeah.
mum,
Yeah.
or
That's right.
I know mum wouldn't
Yeah.
like that, but I don't know
Yeah.
what other options there are, or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That's exactly right, Susie. And
yeah.
I often just say to people that it is actually a beautiful gift to their families to
Mm,
complete their end of life planning and their paperwork. They will be more at peace knowing that all their plans are in place. And come the time when they do die, their families don't have the stress of not knowing what they wanted and whether they're doing the right thing, because people often question, oh, I don't know whether she would have wanted this. I don't know if she would have liked this. So get rid of that, make it clear. This is what I want. And then families, because, when somebody close to you dies, your mind goes, you go to mush. You don't think straight, and
no,
you can't think clearly. You can't, and decisions are like, climbing a mountain.
yes,
So that's the last thing you need to do. And so I can guide people through those icky things of the paperwork that's needed. And I also suggest it's a great idea to have your funeral plans written down, so that your family knows where all these documents are. Um, and if they can't see their way to do this, at least have a will, because if you don't have one, people other than your family can make will they will make all the important decisions about your estate. So they'll take it out of your loved one's hands, and it's yet more stress for the people left behind. So at least if you can't see your way to doing the funeral thing and at least have a will.
yes,
It is a gift to the people left behind. And
exactly.
yeah, look, just talking about death won't jinx you. Um, it won't hasten your death, and it's just like talking about
Oh,
pregnancy. It
isn't that
won't
interesting?
it
There is a
won't
lot of
make you
superstition
pregnant.
around that, isn't
No,
there?
yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
oh no, I don't want to talk about that. Because people do think, oh, that'll hasten whatever, and I'll get sick or something. And I don't want to do it. It's yeah. So it is really about giving not only yourself but the people you love peace of mind. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Now, from nursing to funeral direction to Reiki, I'm also a Reiki master teacher.
Yes,
And
beautiful.
I think Reiki is a beautiful way to live, actually. How have all of these roles shaped your understanding of life, love, and consciousness, Lauren? Big question,
Uh,
right?
oh, look, and when I was preparing to talk to you, I was, like all of these things about, knowing yourself and
Yeah,
what are your values and et
so
cetera, et cetera,
powerful. Yeah.
and thinking about all these things. So I suppose, as I mentioned, being involved with people at these monumental times in their lives, such a time as when they're in hospital or when they're nearing death, death itself. Um, it opens me up to so much intimacy with people. I mean, what's more intimate and personal than dying?
Yes.
Really, really. Um,
Goosebumps again.
yeah,
Mm.
it is a deeply personal event. And
Yes.
I find that people aren't afraid of death as much as being afraid of the manner of their death, and the suffering that may be involved. So it is really about talking it all through. Um, and people have asked me directly, what's it like to die?
Mm.
Look me in the eyes and say, what's it like to die? And I mean, that's a big
Wow.
question, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a massive question. And I asked, do you mean physically, spiritually, or both? And from there on, we discuss what happens with the body, come the time that the body actually stops working, as it's shutting down, and all of those processes, and also the medical support, pain relief, etc., that can come, can step in and assist during that time as well.
Yes.
Um, and about my beliefs spiritually, if they ask about it,
Yeah.
um, and if they want to talk about it, of course, I'm
Yes.
always always open to that, because it always brings a great deal of comfort and peace when people go through that, and they run it through in their minds, and they think, okay, you know, okay, this isn't as scary as I thought it was, and I can do this, you know. Um, and of course, Reiki introduced me to the knowledge that, everything, you, me, everything is energy,
Yes.
and that we can utilize this universal energy in healing and connection. And I've had some very intense spiritual experiences with Reiki, and that beautiful universal energy pouring through me. Um, it's been so amazingly spiritually moving. It's brought me to tears at times, and you know, golden shafts of light just staring. It's something you have to experience to fully understand, and it's transformational. It really is. And
I can
uh,
imagine
yeah.
it would be really supportive to hold space for someone that's dying.
Mm,
Like, there must be just something so helpful and so, in around that,
mhm,
using
mhm.
that beautiful, unconditional, divine, universal love, wisdom, whatever you want to call it,
Yep,
um, to actually hold space for someone to pass
yep.
must be such a privilege and an honor. But to understand, like Reiki, I think that kind of, I don't know, it just feels so supportive somehow. Do you find that?
Definitely, definitely. And like, even sending Reiki to people who aren't in the same place as me, um, distance Reiki,
Yes.
I know that that certainly works as well. And people can be infused with a sense of comfort, um, and just peace, I suppose. And I think anything that is going to reduce fear
Yes.
and provide that comfort, um, is so worthy. It's so
Yes.
worthy.
Exactly.
You know.
And to have someone too that's not as,
Mm,
I don't know, like is not right in the thick of it,
yeah.
when you're holding space um,
mm,
for the
mm.
dying, for the family. It must be so, I don't know, it's like a beacon of light almost. And it's not, I'm not talking about, I'm the guru or anything like that. It's more in
No.
regards to just being that, just, just being that calm influence over the situation. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is the thing, and when I go and see families and things as I'm preparing to go and see them, whether it's to talk about preparing for their end of life or even just to arrange their funeral or to see the family after someone has died, I've found that asking spirit to be with me is really powerful as well. And I always find I feel like I'm quite guided to say what's needed. And yeah, so I think learning, you know, having the attunements, the Reiki attunements, and practicing Reiki as well has also made me so much more in touch with that space and that connection and the
Yes.
knowledge of the energy.
The
So
oneness consciousness,
that's right. That's
that
right.
soul unity, that oneness consciousness,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
scientifically and spiritually, we're actually not separate,
No. Yeah.
it's an illusion, you know.
It's totally.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Totally.
yeah, I think when
Yeah.
you have the
Yeah.
understanding of the merging of
Yeah.
spirit,
Yep.
so
Yep.
powerful. I love that too. I just have to mention too, I love that you mentioned Tibetan Buddhism. I really resonate with that form of spirituality as well,
Mm,
the power of peace,
mm,
like
mm,
so
mm.
profound, so profound. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just started reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead again. So I read it many years ago when I was in my early 20s, and I've just well got it on my Kindle now. Um,
Well,
so
that's a good
yeah,
recommendation for our listeners too, if they wanted to have a
yes,
read of that.
Tibetan Book of
Yeah.
the Dead, and
Yeah.
it's it's really is. It talks about all these things, the acceptance, the peace, and the beauty that can bring to your life, and just the joy and happiness that it can bring, and the gratitude. Um, the only tattoo I have is a tree of life, and underneath it is the word gratitude.
Oh, I love
And
that.
and
You're
I look at
speaking
the,
my language, Lauren.
I look at that in the shower, and
Yeah.
and when I need to be reminded, I tap myself and say,
Such a good symbol to have on your body.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I've gone with the Tree of Life funerals, and that
Yes.
the Tree of Life and that circle of life.
Yes.
We it's all, as you say, it's all connected. Everything is connected. Everything is energy,
Everything is
and
energy.
yeah, yeah, and
Yes.
that's that interconnectedness of existence. Yeah.
I have to ask you a question. Do you support people that lose their pets as well?
Um.
I know that's
Look,
an interesting thing to ask you.
I haven't. Oh, look,
You
friends and that.
probably could
Yeah,
network. Yeah.
I probably could.
Yeah.
But and I've certainly, with friends and all the rest, and my own little fellas, um, yeah, yeah, it's because I do Reiki on my dogs.
Yes. Don't they love it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
They
and
love it. They just
yeah,
start.
they do. They
I've got a
do.
sausage dog, Pablo, and it's almost like he starts purring.
Yeah,
And he's a
yeah,
dog,
yeah,
not a cat,
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think the focus being on people and look, and the owners of these pets as well. So it's more sort of supporting the pet because when you lose a dog or a cat's this little creature that you've loved all for years and years and years, that's been part of your heart and part of your life. It is. Sometimes it's worse than losing a family member that you're not particularly fond of, you know?
I have to tell you something, like we lost
Mm,
our family, Grudel, our family dog Leo, and we were all there when he passed and he was euthanized. And it was incredibly sad, but also so beautiful. And as a family, um, it was one of the most amazing experiences we've ever had to be there for
yes.
Leo. The way he looked up into my son's eyes, like with the understanding of, I know what's happening. I want to go now. And then the light went out in his eyes. Um, I can't
Yeah.
explain it. It was so sad, but so incredibly beautiful at the same time. And we all felt that. It felt, yeah, to
Yeah.
hold him, like all of us, the four of us to hold him
Yeah.
as he passed,
Yes,
like,
yes, yes.
yeah.
No, it's just a wonderful thing. One of my neighbours, her she had her dog came to the end of his life, and needed to put him to sleep, and they invited a mobile vet to that specialises in that to come around, and they did it out on the front balcony, like his favourite little spot, with the other dog there, so that which I think is really
Oh, how
important too.
lovely.
And they held this little fella, and he transitioned in their arms in his favourite spot with the other, with both of his parents there, and his other little doggy friend, so
Oh, how wonderful.
yeah,
And we've
and
planted a tree in our backyard, and it's a beautiful flame tree. When I say backyard, we've got 3.5 acres of trees here. So,
gorgeous,
um,
gorgeous.
but Leo's tree will be, amongst the gum trees, but it will be a beautiful, gorgeous flame tree. And there's just something
Yeah.
so special about, I don't know. I love that your symbol, your logo, the name of your business is actually that tree of life, because I just think, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful symbol.
Mm.
My next question for you, my love, to finish off today
Sure,
is,
sure.
yeah, is what advice would you give to listeners looking to create a meaningful and fearless life that honors their relationships and their own spirit?
Another big question, Susie.
Yeah. I love the big, juicy, deep questions.
I know,
No
and
light and fluffy.
no, and that's what life's about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I go back to where we started. I think make it your focus to discover spiritual truth. Um, come to know yourself. Um, love yourself with all your frailties and all your human imperfections. Forgive yourself for those as well, because we can be so judgmental of ourselves. Um, we have enough people on the outside of us judging us without doing it to ourselves.
Exactly.
Treat yourself like your own best friend, really.
What a
Um,
great answer.
try to be a better version of yourself every day. And we will fail at times, and that's not the time to give up. That's the time to forget the mistake, but remember the lesson.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
That's really the so important.
Yeah. Forget
Don't
the
be
mistake. What was that? Forget the
Forget the
mistake.
mistake, but remember the lesson.
I love
You
that.
know, because
Yeah.
you can't. I spent years beating myself up for doing, not being the way I think I should be. You,
Yes.
and it's pointless. You give yourself such freedom if you just free yourself from all of that. Um, treat every day as a new day where you can learn something new. Um, show a kindness to another person, display love to others, and if you can provide some compassion and comfort to others, just do it. The depths of your personal satisfaction of living this way will surprise you. It really will. Um, and come to the understanding that our bodies are indeed mortal, but our spirits are eternal, and that in the
Mm,
end, there's really nothing to be afraid of. In the end, there's nothing to be afraid of.
beautiful.
Mm.
Now, I've got your links here. They're all going in the show notes. We've got Lauren's website, which is Tree of Life Funerals. Um, we've got Tree of Life Services, and you can connect on Facebook as well. Tree of Life Funerals, Bateman's Bay. I highly recommend that you look Lauren up. I'm so grateful to you, Lauren, for today. I felt that was just so beautiful, so supportive, so informative, so compassionate. Thank you so much, my love.
Oh, look, thank you. It's it's been wonderful, actually. Yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to get the this word out to people. Thank you. Mm,
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
bye bye.